Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is Game 6, World Chess Championship 2024. Going into Game 6, we remain level, 2.5 points apiece. Customary handshake before kickoff. Ding Liren, with the white pieces, opens with d4. And we see a London system in this Game 6. A dark square strategy is implemented in this game early by Ding Liren. He opens a path here for the queen. Bishop d6, bishop b5 check, and after the knight blocks, we have an early minor piece imbalance and a couple holes to speak of. c6 and c5 are now holes after this last capture. No b pawn around anymore to secure these squares. Dark square bishop exchange, queen a4, and after castles, queen a3. This is the dark square strategy I'm speaking of. This pressure along this diagonal. There is a pinned pawn here, queen, unprotected. Black continues with knight e4, securing both points. This marks move 10. Ding spent 3 minutes through these first 10 moves. Gukesh 5. Follow-up now is knight f to d2, this underdeveloping challenge of the central knight. Why is white underdeveloping in order to challenge this knight? Why not develop a new piece? Well, if you develop a new piece like this, you will not be able to respond to this capture with knight captures knight. This is what white would like to do in the event of c takes d4 here. If you take the knight now, black could destroy your queenside structure. And this is considered better for team black. Bishop getting into this d3 square could be super effective, cutting out any rook pivot on the b1 square. I should also note that if you do go with this development and this captures in there, you could, instead of capturing the knight, you could exchange queens and play a position like this, which is certainly has its appeal. There is a backward c-pawn. It still considers this an even position, but some care is definitely required, more so on black side, I would say, with the weak pawn around. How are things different in this game with the underdeveloping knight f to d2? Well, first of all, black here continues with e5, takes advantage of a weakness of white's last move, knight no longer around, controlling that break. If black responds with pawn captures pawn here, now we can capture this knight, and we are in a position to meet queen takes queen with the knight recapture, and we maintain a healthy structure on the queen side. So this is looking super appealing for team white. Okay, very easily see this one. Strong knight versus bad bishop. Knight on the c5 square. Short story. We're underdeveloping the knight, keeping this guy around to secure the queen in the event of this capture. Follow-up is e5. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes knight. Queen takes c5. Black cannot afford a queen exchange. Black is down a pawn now, must seek counterplay. This diagonal has opened up. There's a weak pawn here. It's in the crosshairs. What are you supposed to do about it? In the game, knight d2 is played, and black simply picks up the pawn. If you try and defend the pawn with castles, you're running right into bishop to h3, and you're going to have to soon give up a rook. So that's not appealing. White has his eye on castling queenside in this game. G-pawn and F-pawn wiped out. D takes e4. Queen is now there, securing e3. Follow-up, rook to b8. This is a poison pawn, knight c4 played. If you're capturing on e4, mate in 1. So it's knight c4, we got that covered. And the follow-up here, Gukesh plays bishop to e6. One of the computer suggestions at this stage, a fancy queen f3 move. Nearby for white, I should point out, nearby for white is this nice construction where the rook is allowed to pivot on d2 and cover a couple important base points. Queen f3, this idea of queen f3 looks to interfere with this rook lift by keeping pressure on the rook. Rook d2, the rook hangs. If you try and move the rook out of this attack, once more looking for a rook d2 move, the queen, it's suggesting put the queen on f2, once more preventing this rook d2 move. Pressure on the rook again, as well as the pawn. You could see in a position like this some repetition of position, but we do not experience that in this game. The queen does not turn out to be a bug to the white rooks. It is a very natural move here. Bishop e6 development. There's a threat now. Swipe the knight and crash through on b2. There's only one move here, and it is rook d2, queen f3, rook e1. Black's prepared to knock out the knight, or really two defenders of this point in the process of capturing the knight. So some security is required over e3. Bishop takes knight is played. If you play in a different way, if you don't take this knight could definitely be a super scary piece. So for instance, if we flick in some passing move like h6, it's somewhat productive, getting a flight square, but a knight on d6 still calls this around even, but yeah, it's a pretty strong piece to be sure. Knight on d6, pointing at a lot of interesting squares in Black's camp here. The knight also doesn't allow the rooks to pivot on these 8th rank squares so easily. Not a path Black chooses. Its bishop captures knight in this game. Queen takes bishop. And follow up here is queen to f5. If Black plays it in a different way, say rook b to d8, White could consider pivoting, interacting with this furthest advanced pawn on the d6 square, maybe ending up with a passed pawn. Black has some potential counterplay against this rook as soon as this rook is no longer around guarding the 2nd rank. All right, in this one, no rook b to d8. It is queen to f5. That marks move 20, this queen recapture, queen f5, move 20. Ding spent 7 minutes in total after these 20 moves. Gukesh spent 53 minutes. Now, a big moment here, move 21, Ding ends up playing queen to queen captures pawn. He spent 43 minutes on this move 21. I imagine a move he was considering is queen c5, not being so quick to give up the e5 pawn and maybe looking forward to knocking out the a pawn in a timely way and working with, in some cases, a passed a pawn. Tough to know exactly what was going through his mind here for these 43 minutes. I imagine this was one move he was considering, or maybe even a case where you try to work out the nuances of, is Black maybe a little bit more vulnerable if they try to track down the pawn with the rook being on e8 rather than f8. A lot of little technical thoughts may be running through one's mind around this point here. Still a very complicated position with these major pieces all present. In this game, he decides on queen takes c6, and with that capture, we have a passed c pawn. Queen takes e5, follow up now, queen d5, offering a queen exchange. This is declined. Gukesh ends up playing queen to e7 here. If you go for a queen exchange, This is a position where you really have to calculate super deep. It's not going to be easy to calculate very accurately here. I mean, it wouldn't be crazy to think you'd have to calculate more than 10 moves deep for an ending like this. Here's something I can say. If the queens are exchanged, forgetting just about the calculation, who would be the side, who would you prefer to play here? Team white or team black? My preference would be team white. And here's why. Here's a couple positives I see in a rook ending like this. Number one, white has this passed pawn. Number two, the king is nearby and can easily assist helping this pawn advance. And because that king is assisting those pawns, these guys can go elsewhere. They could consider targeting weak black pawns or maybe fulfilling important roles like defending base points. In short, passed pawn, king nearby to help assist with these pawn advances. That tips in white's favor in the event of a queen exchange. Gukesh recognizes this, that it is probably, in short, more comfortable for white to play here if the queens are exchanged. So he declines. He plays queen e7. Ding Liren offers the queen yet again. Gukesh says no. Another offer of a queen exchange. No, thank you. Another offer. No, thanks. Another offer. If the queen goes back here, we would have a threefold repetition. Gukesh says, play ball. Queen h4 instead, targeting the rook. The game continues. Is he overpressing playing in this way? Maybe so. We continue with the doubling, or really tripling, on the only open file. Follow up flight square, queen e5, rook b to e8. Another offer of a queen exchange, declined yet again, queen h5, played here. You could take the queen. This is considered a draw with some idea to target this pawn, potentially running with the h pawn. Could end up in a pin if you're defending the g pawn. He does not exchange queens. After queen g3, it is queen h5. And now the queen gets to this f4 square. Black continues here with queen to a5. What's being suggested here is queen f3. Once more, going for a queen exchange. He does not play in this way. He's targeting a2 in this game. He slides the queen all the way over. That marks move 30. Quick update here with the clocks. Ding has 33 minutes remaining. Gukesh 37. This queen is really good. She's watching over two important kingside pawns. She's not just a defender. Pressure on a square right next to the black king. It's not long off from white maybe coordinating on that square. Maybe not such a wise choice what black is doing here. a3 played, simply defending the threat. Queen b5, rook d4. We have the e4 pawn in mind, the black queen going to e2 here, and the follow-up is rook 1 to d2. If you take on e4, in the end, this h-pawn will fall. Who would be better here? In the computer's eyes, it says equal. I'd be leaning more towards black. I like that there's this h-pawn you could advance. It's a passed pawn now, and while you move that h-pawn, you're not really exposing your king in any way. Or not significantly, I should say. So not really a good exchange of pawns to take right here. It's rook 1 to d2. And now in this roundabout way, earlier when the queen was on h5, it could have played to f3. It goes to f3 now. We follow up with king to c2. If white initiates the exchange here, how might play continue? This pawn is under fire. How do you defend it? If you go with this advance here, black could consider g5. And are you going to be able to successfully get this pawn? It's not going to be tracked down so easily. So he is not so quick. Ding Liren here is not so quick to initiate this exchange. He ends up playing king to c2, which is essentially the start of a race. The king needs to step up if you want to get going, assisting the passed c pawn. And now it's Gukesh who finally agrees to this queen exchange. Again, a bit of a roundabout way. Eventually, we finally do have that queen exchange, though. Follow up, f5, h4. I believe this is a really important move to have in there. This holds up the g5 pawn break. So if you just say to yourself at this moment, okay, it's a race position, let's get going finally with my passed c pawn. I want to just show you how quickly the game can turn decisively in black's favor. g5, not a winning move. Rook g2 is considered best here, but just to emphasize this idea, g5 pulls this pawn away, and black immediately has two connected passed pawns, which is winning. e3, f4, just keep pushing your pawns. Something I want to note here is that with this queen exchange, something that's happening, this pawn is a little bit closer to black's side of the board. What might this mean? Well, in these race positions, it may mean that creating a passed pawn is a bit easier for black. We're seeing an example here with the moves I put on here, f5 and g5, prying that pawn away. It's more accessible to black. These ideas are, they happen faster because this pawn is up one rank closer to Team Black. All right, in this game, it is f5, h4, cutting out the g5 idea. e3, got a blockade, not ideal, but necessary to blockade with the rook in this case. Black secures his 7th rank, some pressure on the pawn, it is defended. And now let me throw this position to you as a pop quiz. How would you continue here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, important moment in the game. This is again a moment where you may say to yourself, well, I have the passed pawn, let's get running with it. This would not be a good idea to just continue pushing pawns like this, not factoring in what black's idea would be. If you just push your pawn here, this is how black can continue. The king can simply approach over here. And what are you doing about this pawn? You can't defend it. You put the rook on h2, the pawn runs. So what does this mean? The h pawn's going to fall. Who's winning this race? It's black because of this g5 break. After takes, there you go. Two connected passed pawns. Black is winning here. So how is Ding interfering with this idea of having the black king sneak up like this? Well, before running with the c pawn, he flicks in h5. This is a beautiful move in this ending. Black continues with g takes h5. If you keep this tension and continue in this way with king g7, we get this capture in here. And now you could continue pressing on the queen side with c4. How are things different with no h-pawn around? Well, if the king steps foot on h6 here, hang on. There's a check, flushing the king back. The rook can come back over to blockade. The point here, there's a check available, preventing this king from even thinking about approaching this pawn. It's not the end of the story. There are some other ideas present here for black. Once more, this g5 idea, meeting a capture with king to g6. This is still considered a draw. In the event of a capture here, there's once more a timely check before this pawn can connect. Some repetition of position may ensue like this. This rook can be a bug on the G or H files. All right, in this game, what do we have after Ding plays H5? We have the capture on H5. And now this is a weak point. Got a bunch of isolated pawns here. Ding targets the F5 pawn. H4, rook takes F5. Rook check, only one move here. King C2 is played. If you go to C4, you're in trouble. The blockader is challenged. And if we have a rook exchange, rook here, rook E2, you're not going to be able to stop both of these pawns. This is a win for Team Black. So, in this game, the check is met with King C2, King G7, and from here we have Rook G2 check. The king goes back in reply. If White tries to play in a different way in this ending, for instance, Rook H5, the king can approach. Yes, this pawn is won, but look at how active this black king is getting here. The black king can get all the way to this F3 square, and now White is really tied down. White is up some material here, but how do you make progress here? These are not the most effective rooks. Super strong king position. And also we have a white king who is cut off. This is considered equal, but in general, probably not a wise choice to allow this king such a strong post. So Ding does not allow the black king to enter his house like this. After the king steps up, it is Rook G2 check in this game. Two options for the king. He goes to the corner. If you want to lose, play to H6 and run into a mate into Rook G5 ball game. So the king must go to the corner. White returns to blockade the pawn. Black says, "Are you going to let me slip out?" Ding says, "No, go back to the corner." And what do we have here? After a very tough fight, we have a draw on board. This is one of the lengthier games of this match. This game 6, neither player struggled, I'd say, to meet time control at the move 40 point. Ding still had about 6 minutes. Gukesh 4 minutes. That was the point where Rook D5 and H4 was played. That was move 40. Very tense game here. This one could have gone in many different directions. 3 results seemed possible for many moments in this game, but in the end, a peaceful game 6, and we remain level. So, what did you think of this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.